My name's Graeme Sweeney, and I have, I think, two significant roles in the context of our gathering this evening. I'm the chairman of the Advisory Council of the ZEP. I'll say a bit about what I think that means. And I'm also the Executive Vice President for CO2 at Royal Dutch Shell, which I think means that I'm single point accountable for all of Royal Dutch Shell's emissions. So, on behalf of the Zero Emissions Platform, which calls itself ZEP, which is itself short for the Zero Emissions Fossil Fuel Technology Platform, and technically what I chair is the Advisory Council of that august body. Some of you, of course, are members of that. But anyway, it's a privilege to be with you at our event, CCS and the Climate Change Challenge. So what we'd like to do here this evening is share with you what we believe is our expertise, and you at the end will be the judge of that, and support for a technology that is undoubtedly crucial to combating climate change, CO2 capture and storage, or CCS as is often known. Amid the intense negotiations that have enveloped Copenhagen, we believe that the goal of a global climate treaty remains indisputable to prevent the irreversible effects of climate change. How? By clearly defining and implementing the regulatory, market and financial mechanisms necessary to spur the aggressive development and deployment of the technologies we require to combat climate change. Now, you're also aware that there are literally hundreds of proposals on the table for how to achieve the goal of a binding and effective deal, all reflecting the various priorities of the world's nations. But at least one truth has also emerged over the years leading up to this moment, and that is that there is no silver bullet as a solution to climate change, no single bullet that will stop it dead in its tracks. I think there's a second part to this, which is that we will have to rely on fossil fuels for many decades to come, which means we have to find ways to reduce emissions from them while we invest as strongly as we know how in growing the share of renewables in our energy system and, of course, promoting energy efficiency and conservation. But as the overall growth of energy in pursuit of welfare is clear, we shall need all of these solutions. So what I say regularly on these occasions is that I hear far too much of the dialogue posed in the you must either be in favour of this or that, when the complex reality that faces us is that we will have to do almost all of the things that we know how to do. And this is a very complex kind of and, isn't it? It's and. So, before sharing more with you about the technology we support, I'd like to take a brief moment to present the people who make up the ZEP. We're a truly unique coalition in my experience. You know, there are plenty of coalitions of industry folk, like myself. And indeed, it's critically important that there are lots of industry folk in the ZEP. There are folk from the power generation business, from oil and gas in general, and from the equipment manufacturers. So that's already an interesting set of folk. But I think the thing that drives the strength is that there are also government representatives, there are environmental NGOs like WWF and Bellona, and there are also scientists and academics. This is a very wide coalition indeed. So whilst it is true that we don't agree about everything, the extraordinary mix of people produces a strong process for driving forward the issue and expresses how we feel about climate change and the pivotal role of CCS therein. So the ZEP serves as an EU advisor and facilitator on all of the technical, technological, policy, commercial and other CCS-related issues. Clear focus on the technology and a lot of deep thinking about all of the things that need to be done and said there. Perhaps because of where we are, a lot of conversation around policy and commerciality over the last 1 to 2 years. But in the end, The shared goal is to create CO2 capture and storage technology that is commercially viable by 2020 in order to kickstart its global deployment. So, we firmly support the need for a portfolio of technological solutions to combat climate change, including capturing and storing CO2 from, of course, the world's largest emitters, fossil fuel power plants and heavy industry. In that context, the CCS landscape has undergone major transformation over the last year or so. And central to this, I think,